My wife has a deep passion and desire for excitement in her life. To fulfill this, we often explore new experiences together, finding unique ways to keep our relationship thrilling and alive. She knows how incredibly excited I get when she takes on the role of a playful wife. While I am always aware of her adventures, it is our agreement, there's something about this element of surprise and secrecy that adds a layer of excitement to our dynamic. We sometimes agree that the people she interacts with remain unaware of my knowledge. As far as they know, she's a woman exploring life outside of her usual routine. It's their little secret, and I enjoy the mystery of it all. She has an incredible way of engaging with those she finds interesting. She's charming, confident, and her smile can make anyone feel special. When she feels a connection, she can be incredibly persuasive and captivating. I love watching her in these moments, observing how she navigates these situations with grace and confidence. This summer, we went to a cottage with friends, not realizing another guest would join us. He was tall, fit, and had a magnetic presence that I knew would catch her attention. The moment we met, I could see her excitement, and we exchanged glances that only we understood. Over the years, we've developed a silent language of touches and looks to communicate our thoughts without others noticing. She began her subtle flirting early on, after just one drink. I love how she becomes more relaxed and open, and I could see she was drawing him in, bit by bit, with her playful comments and light touches on his arm. She's an expert at this, knowing exactly how to make someone feel special and desired without being obvious to those around her. We all went down to the dock for a swim, and she wore a bikini that highlighted her slender, athletic figure. I could see his interest growing as they interacted. She positioned herself across from him on the chaise lounge, giving him a perfect view. Occasionally, she would glance over at me to ensure I wasn't watching too closely, though I was well aware of everything happening. Later, as the evening continued, our hosts went to bed early, leaving the three of us alone. I decided to take a walk outside, giving them a chance to talk privately. From my hidden spot, I watched them in the dim light, noticing how their conversation grew more personal and their body language more intimate. The tension was palpable, and I felt a rush of excitement watching them from a distance, knowing where this might lead. When I returned, I acted as if I had no idea what had transpired and suggested I was ready for bed. Our hosts had a guest cottage with a few separate rooms, and I knew that he would be staying just down the hall. My wife mentioned she would finish tidying up before joining me, and I knew what that meant. After waiting a few moments, I slipped back outside to my hidden spot. I could see them standing close together, their bodies just inches apart, the air between them charged with unspoken attraction. I watched as they shared a moment of connection, their hands touching briefly. I felt a mixture of emotions, excitement, intrigue, and the thrill of watching this unfold. When I returned to the cottage, I announced that I was going to bed. She said she would join me shortly, and I knew she would take some time to finish what she had started. I waited patiently, wondering how the rest of the night would play out. Instead of heading straight to bed, I positioned myself where I could observe them without being seen. From my vantage point outside, I watched through the window as he moved closer to her, his posture tense with both excitement and uncertainty. She smiled at him, a knowing, inviting smile, and I saw her lean in to whisper something. Whatever she said made him relax, and they laughed softly together. A moment later, I watched him reach for her hand, and she let him pull her closer. Their bodies were almost touching, the air between them thick with tension. He brushed a strand of hair away from her face, his fingers lingering on her cheek. She closed her eyes briefly, leaning into his touch, and I could see the pleasure in her expression. They continued talking in low voices, their faces close, almost touching. I could tell he was still hesitant, unsure if he should proceed. She reassured him with a gentle nod, and I saw her glance toward the door, as if ensuring no one else could see. The secret thrill of it all made my pulse quicken. Eventually, they moved away from the kitchen toward the living room. She walked ahead, her movements deliberate and confident. He followed, his eyes never leaving her. As they stood near the window, he gently took her hand, pulling her into a quiet corner where the shadows played tricks with the light. I watched, hidden from view, as he leaned down and kissed her. It started slowly, cautiously, and then grew deeper. I could see her arms wrap around his neck, pulling him closer, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. After a few moments, she broke the kiss and whispered something into his ear. I couldn't hear what she said, but whatever it was, it made him smile, a mix of relief and eagerness. They stood there, forehead to forehead, sharing a quiet, intimate moment. Feeling the excitement building within me, I decided to head back inside, ready to end the suspense. As I walked in, they quickly separated, trying to compose themselves. My wife glanced at me with a mischievous grin, her cheeks flushed. "I'm going to head to bed now," I said casually, pretending not to notice their flustered expressions. "You two have a good night." She nodded, and he mumbled something about also getting some rest. I left the room, smiling to myself, knowing that the night's adventures were far from over. After I left the room, I made my way back to our sleeping quarters, but instead of lying down, I positioned myself near the window where I could discreetly observe what was happening inside the cottage. Through a small gap in the curtain, I saw them moving closer again. The tension between them was undeniable, charged with excitement and curiosity. I watched as they spoke softly, their words inaudible but their body language speaking volumes. My wife seemed to be assuring him that everything was okay, her hand gently resting on his arm, her smile warm and inviting. He finally seemed to let go of his hesitation, his posture relaxing as he leaned in closer. He reached out and touched her face, and she responded with a soft laugh, tilting her head slightly, inviting his touch. They stood there for a moment, lost in each other, and then he kissed her again, this time more confidently. I felt a surge of excitement knowing they were crossing into new territory. I decided to step back, letting them have their moment, and return to our room. I lay down on the bed, my mind racing with thoughts of what might be happening. The anticipation and the thrill of the unknown filled me with a strange mix of emotions: curiosity, excitement, and a deep sense of connection to her. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the door creak open softly. My wife slipped into the room, a soft smile playing on her lips. She closed the door behind her, moving quietly so as not to wake anyone else. She came over to me, her expression glowing with a mix of exhilaration and happiness. Without saying a word, she leaned down and kissed me gently, her lips still warm and tasting faintly of wine. I pulled her closer, and she whispered in my ear, "Thank you for letting me be myself tonight." We lay there together, our hands entwined, sharing a quiet moment of intimacy. I could feel the connection between us stronger than ever, a bond forged through trust and shared desires. The night had been full of unexpected moments, but it had only deepened our understanding of each other. As we drifted off to sleep, I felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that our relationship was built on openness and honesty. No matter where our journey took us, we knew that we would always have each other. As we lay there, I could feel her heartbeat slowing, her breathing becoming deeper and more relaxed. I held her close, savoring the warmth of her body against mine, the quiet satisfaction of knowing she felt fulfilled and content. The night was still and calm, only the faint rustle of leaves outside breaking the silence. After a while, she stirred softly, looking up at me with a gentle smile. "It was incredible," she whispered, her eyes sparkling with a mix of joy and mischief. I could see the happiness in her expression, the thrill of having explored something new and exciting. "I'm glad," I replied, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. "Did you enjoy yourself?" She nodded, her smile widening. "Yes, it was everything I imagined and more. But more than that, I loved knowing you were with me, even from a distance. It made everything feel connected." We talked for a little while longer, sharing our thoughts and feelings about the night. She told me about the moments that had excited her the most, and I shared how much I had enjoyed watching her explore her desires so openly. Our conversation was intimate and open, full of trust and understanding. Eventually, we fell silent, both of us feeling the pull of sleep after such an intense evening. I kissed her forehead, and she nestled closer to me, her body relaxed and warm. As I closed my eyes, I felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that we had grown even closer through this experience. The next morning, we awoke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains. She stretched beside me, her face calm and content. We lay there for a few moments, enjoying the quiet stillness of the early morning before getting up to start the day. As we dressed and prepared to leave, we exchanged a few glances that spoke volumes, silent acknowledgments of the shared secrets and special moments from the night before. We both knew that our relationship had deepened in ways we hadn't expected, and we were grateful for it. Before we left, we took a final walk down to the lake, hand in hand. The water was calm, the surface reflecting the clear blue sky above. We paused at the edge, looking out over the water, both feeling the serenity of the morning. She turned to me, her eyes bright. I love you, she said simply, her voice full of warmth. I love you too, I replied, pulling her into a gentle embrace. Always. We stood there for a while longer, wrapped in each other's arms, enjoying the peace of the moment. And as we walked back to the cottage, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, stronger and more connected than ever before.